Well, so welcome to this video where I am going to give you a little bit of an idea as to how I create textured fur. I'm working on drafting film with this particular piece. It's graphics drafting film 0.005 double matte. The photo credit is Tristan Bain, and I'm going to show you how I drew the ear. The specific techniques and the process that I went through to create this lovely tufty ear. So yeah, hold on to your pants and we're off. Okay, so I tend to start my pieces, particularly like this ear that we've got here, with getting some darks in. This always, for me, is a good idea because it means that I'm kind of setting the scene. It means that I'm kind of getting those, the darkest areas in, particularly when I'm using drafting film because I use the subtraction technique. But getting those darks in means that you can then work out how light your highlights need to be and how light your midtones need to be. So for this one, I'm using the Polychromos Dark Sepia. One of my most used pencils, I have to say. It's a really super pencil instead of using a black. The next pencil you saw was the Warm Grey 4, and then here I'm just bringing in a little bit of the Luminance Brown Ochre 10%, I think, and followed by the Polychromos Walnut Brown. What I tend to do, particularly when I'm working on drafting film, is I'll bring in the details quite quickly. If you're not familiar with drawing on drafting film, it's a fantastic surface. It's very smooth, there's no tooth, and it means that you don't have a huge amount of capability of getting lots and lots of layers in. So getting your details in quite quickly is paramount, really. I tend to use the Tombow here that I'm using at the minute. This is the Tombow Mono Eraser. I put my colour in, and then I kind of take out some of the texture with the Tombow, and then I bring in my trusty slice tool. This is the Slice manual pen cutter that I've got here, and just bring in some of those sort of hair details, and then go back in again with the colour. This is black that I'm using here, and it means that I can create some really great texture in the ear. You know, you can see all of those little fine hairs appearing, and it just gives a really nice effect, I think. And twinned with the Tombow, you get some softer kind of hairs, and then you get the more sort of sharper hairs and the smaller sort of detail in there. So coming down onto the face, again, I kind of plot in the colour really to begin with. I'm using this Cold Grey, I think it's Cold Grey 2, Polychromos Cold Grey 2. I also, with my line drawing, I print my line drawing out, and because I'm working on a semi-transparent surface, I put my line drawing underneath the film so I don't have to rub anything out, and it means I can put a piece of paper underneath if I want to lose the line art, and it just means that my colours don't become all sort of bogged down with the graphite. So again, literally just plotting colour in, bringing in that nice burnt ochre base in there, and then the walnut brown on the top, just bringing in some of those little details in there, really concentrating on getting those darks really dark. It's very important when you're drawing animals to get your darks really nice and dark, and sometimes it can be a little bit tricky. I know I found it a little bit harder on this one to get my darks really nice and dark, and I had to keep going back in again, and I think I'm usually working on pastel matte and then coming back to work on the drafting film. It was a little bit of a shock. So I've just plotted that top bit in there. We haven't got any details or anything in there as of yet. And then bringing in, I think this is a Cold Grey 4, Polychromos Cold Grey 4. Again, looking at the texture of the fur, you can see I'm not just blocking the colour in, I'm kind of bringing the texture and almost like the undulating structure of the face in there as well. For me, it's really important to get that structure in very early on. So watching your pencil lines when you're drawing the fur, following the the growth of the fur, following the angles and the curves and everything of the fur is going to mean that you end up with something that really looks structurally correct. And then I tend to start off again with the Tombow Mono eraser, just to bring in a few of those sort of, I guess, bigger, softer highlights. And then back in again with the slice tool. So you can be really, really, really precise with your slice tool. You know, you can get those colours in, those details in really, really precisely. And it's a really, really great way of creating details, particularly on the drafting film. The bit of a sweep that you see, like we've just seen there, is actually a makeup brush just brushing away all of the little bits of pigment. Doesn't work particularly well on when you've got things speeded up. And then, you know, again, just working through the entire piece and bringing all of those little details and everything in. It's important to ensure that you have enough depth in your colour before you start bringing in the slice tool. A lot of the time, we don't go dark enough. So it ends up being, you can't really see where those slice marks have gone. So it's really, really, really important to, you know, ensure that you get enough information down on the paper before you start, you know, slicing and everything like that. And yeah, it's a great technique, a really, really nice technique to use. It's relatively easy. You've just got to concentrate on your values and your colour and everything to begin with, then bring all of the texture in afterwards into the fur, and then use your pencils to kind of touch them up. So hopefully that was useful. This is a full tutorial in my academy. And I can't remember how many hours it was. It wasn't that long actually, but a really, really nice piece to do.